The early Chinese immigrants pioneers were typically sojourners workers, looking for a piece of gold mountain to take back to China to help their families. Many faced conditions of racism, exclusion, and economic exploitation, even as they helped transform America by building railroads, establishing fisheries, harvesting crops, and producing in factories. Our place today in this society rests, in part, on their legacy. It is in memory of their unrecognized struggles and profound contributions that we offer the Sojourner Award.
Hi everyone, I'm Mayor Michelle Wu. As a daughter of immigrants from Taiwan, I'm proud of our city's historic and thriving Chinatown as a cultural hub and a home for the entire region. I'm especially grateful to the Chinese Historical Society of New England for inviting me to join you all today and congratulate two beloved community leaders and friends, Nick and Eva Chau. First, thank you to everyone for supporting the critical mission of the Chinese Historical Society of New England in keeping our community history alive and growing. And congratulations to Nick and Eva for receiving today's important Sojourner Award. This annual award celebrates those who continue building on the rich legacy of Chinese Americans. As successful entrepreneurs, Nick and Eva have contributed their time, talents, and treasures to the Chinese community through philanthropic contributions to the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center, the Boston Foundation's Asian Community Fund, and so many other initiatives. And they've been a source of support and inspiration for me personally over many years. I'm especially thankful for the paths that you both have paved and the doors that you've opened. As the first Asian American and first woman elected mayor of Boston, it is an honor to present this award on behalf of the Chinese Historical Society of New England. I look forward to continuing to work with everyone to celebrate and invest in our shared culture and community for Boston to be a city for everyone.
Good evening. I want to thank the Chinese Historical Society of New England for this honor of the Sojourners Award. We'd like to also congratulate the other awardee, Mr. Kleicher Yen. We're humbled by this award, knowing some of the amazing people who also received this award in the past, like Auntie Helen and Paul Lee. My path to the United States from China is kind of gratuitous. I was born in Hoi Ping, immigrated to Hong Kong, then went to Canada as a paper son with the last name of Lee to be raised by my grandparents. My grandfather was Lee also, so everyone thought during those times that he was my father, being only 36 years old when I was born. Anyways, I grew up in a small town in Guelph, went through the regular discrimination of being taunted by fellow classmates, and the only other Asian in my 10 years of living in there was a Japanese fellow by the name of Kent, who was my best friend, and everybody thought we were brothers because we were always together.
My path to the US is pretty straightforward. I came to Boston in 1971 as a foreign student. My maternal grandfather came as a paper son to work on his potato farms in Sacramento in the early 1910s. He was able to send US currency back to China to support his family. He stopped working and moved back to the village in 1945. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1947 from typhoid fever. My mother and her family had a fairly good lifestyle. She went to boarding school because of his hard-earned money. I think that was where my parents met each other. So in 1971, through the sponsorship of my uncle, that is my mother's brother, my mother and my 4 siblings were able to immigrate to San Francisco with a permanent residency status. Then I got my PR through my mother since I was still under 21 at that time.
In the mid-1960s, when they had the amnesty program where people can declare who they really were without being penalized, I changed back to my surname of Chau and moved to Miami to join the rest of my family. My father, since the late 30s, had been trying to get into the United States. He eventually ended up on Angel Island, and before being released, he went to, he settled in Miami along with a lot of other paper family name under Chin. And he never changed his name back to Chau because all the paperwork was already under Chin. So all my siblings have a last name with Chin, and I'm the only Chau in the family. Yeah. Go ahead.
My paternal grandfather has established a pharmaceutical business in the late 1930s. My father, being the eldest son, has to assist my grandfather in the operation. My father became the managerial director of the company after my grandfather retired. His 3 male siblings all went into the medical field. So in those days, the highest paid personnel in a dispensary in Hong Kong was the chemist, the equivalent of a pharmacist in the States. He had a relatively easy job. The job description prompted me to study pharmacy. I never had any ambition to open any business. I met Nick in 1973 when he was working in advertising. I graduated in 1976 when there was a recession. It was hard to find a job in the Greater Boston area, and Nick also got laid off. It was our dear friend, Dr. Stephen Tang, who was one of the founder of the South Cove Community Health Center, gave us an idea to open a pharmacy to serve the South Cove patients and also the Chinese community. So after that, we got married. I completely forgot about my goal. My dream job to work leisurely as a chemist in Hong Kong went also out the door. After that, I worked very hard continuously for the next 35 years in Chinatown.
Yeah, so I got most of my traits from my grandfather. He was a self-taught man. As a matter of fact, he said he wasted 4 years getting a 4th grade education. So my interest in real estate, I actually started with him also. He had told 2 of his Caucasian friends who had an appliance store business to get their real estate license. They did, and eventually became the 2 biggest developers in Guelph, where I grew up. But anyways, in terms of the housing market here and the real estate here, my mentors were Caroline Chang, Neil Chin, and Jackie Kay, who recruited me to be on the Asian Community Development Corporation Board, on which I'm still serving since 1997. I learned a lot about housing, especially affordable housing, and how it affected the community from their hard work.
My grandfather was a self-made man. He was very successful in investments and in his business. He was generous and philanthropic. He took care of not just the immediate family, but also various relatives too. He contributed to a wide range of charities and his family association. Since I needed in the pharmacy all the time, I was not personally able to participate in various organizations. Nick always became the face for Taitung Pharmacy and the Taitung Realty. I truly believe that is God's guidance and God's plan that guides us in our success, that enable us to do what we do.
We're so invested in the Chinatown community because it's them who have supported us all these 45 years, and we feel obligated to reciprocate and help the community in any way we can. I belong to I still belong to the Asian Community Development Corporation Board, the Chinatown Neighborhood Center, and also the Bunker Hill Community College Foundation Board. I've served on these boards for many years, and then it's a way of being active, engaged, and learning about Chinatown as we continue to learn about Chinatown.
Before we opened the pharmacy, the residents in Chinatown patronized the Carl Martin Pharmacy located now on Harrison Avenue, which is next to the St. James Church for their prescription needs. The Chinese always rely on the herbal medicine and remedies and practices. I am sure they will continue to do so along with the adherence to Western medicine. So during the pandemic, we stay open to serve our patients closely. We started to increase our home delivery service so that the patient do not have to go out to possibly expose themselves to the COVID. As the vaccine became available to us due to the generosity of Eugene Welsh, who is the executive director of the South Coast Community Health Center, our pharmacy conducted vaccination clinic at various sites, like the MT storefront at Tai Town Village, Golden Age Center, Chauncey House, the Powell Art Center, Quincy Tower, and some restaurants, and even the patient's home. So, our staff could vaccinate without having the patient to travel far. Now we have a COVID clinic in the pharmacy every Tuesday in order to maximize the usage of vaccine doses. So right now our pharmacy is gearing up to administer the booster shots now.
We're so honored by Chisney because I've been an admirer and supporter of Chisney for a number of years. I was introduced to Chisney by Sherry Dong, Stephanie Font, and our mentor and good friend, Tunny Lee. We're so happy that Chisney has continued Tunny's legacy by having the Tunny Lee lecture series. And we are so involved with that also. And Chisney historically has always been upfront about preserving the Chinatown heritage and documentation. And because Eva is a great history buff, that's how she met York Lowe.
Well, history was not my cup of tea when I was growing up, like when I was a teenager in high school. I got to interested in it more and more as I grew older. I believe that one must know the past in order to understand the present. History is one of my favorite interests now. I love to learn, history of different cultures and different civilizations, even down to the local level. The history of different Chinatown fascinates me. I am proud to be one of the members of my Chinese community. York Lowe and I know each other through a very strange circumstances. That is a story unto itself. He authored an article in the industrial history of Hong Kong about my grandfather's legacy in his pharmaceutical business. Without knowing me or my background at the time, it was a sheer coincidence that we connected and we continue to share things in common.
So Chisney is a big connector for the whole community. And that's one of the qualities that I see that can benefit the community. Thank you very much.